Hey everybody, Nick here, and this morning I got a little bit of time before work, and so I figured I would do a quick disassembly video so I can get this guy prepped for carry and review. This is a Benchmade Griptilian full size, and more specifically, this is the Doug Ritter model. And this is one of them in S30V steel, and of course I gotta thank my buddy Jim for sending this guy along. Because, yeah. So anyways, let's go on ahead and take this little guy apart here. I'm gonna start off by finding the right bit size. So really, I wish I were more expert here, but all I'm doing is just guesstimating and giving it a shot. And it looks like D6 is gonna be our winner for the scale disassembly at least. There we go. Beautiful. It is a beautiful morning. Not quite hot enough yet to be a source of considerable pain. And because I try to shut off my air conditioner while I'm filming, occasionally videos can be a little bit stifling. So it's always a pleasure to film with an open window and a nice morning breeze. This particular Ritter grip is kind of exceptional in that there's not a whole lot of blade play, and yet it's pretty smooth. So my goal in this disassembly is going to be to put it back together in this same state, basically, to make sure that it looks just as good when I put it back together as it did when I took it apart here. So that's definitely on my mind here. A Benchmade with great tolerances is a beautiful thing and not something that should be wasted. Come on, screw. Trying to pop this screw on loose there. There we go. And there we go. Benchmade knives are by and large not that bad to take apart compared to, you know, they tend to use good screws and they've got a good warranty service, so there's not as much sort of emotional struggle with it. Alright, looks like we're going to need a bigger bit there. I'm going to go on ahead and, let's see, T10 may be a little big. No, that looks like the choice. Okay, Torx T10. Got my little issue here where every so often I get the bit stuck in this driver. Such is life. T10. Here we go. And so, we are now disassembled. Go ahead and pop this off. One thing that's kind of interesting to note is that the Griptilian, all varieties of it, have skeletonized inner liners. So it's not the case that the entire knife is full of liner. And in fact, you can see the screw mounts here are built into this, well, FRN plastic. Yeah, some kind of plastic or another, polymer. And so that's a little different than a lot of people expect. Because you see a little metal here, but you don't think it might be, yeah. And this actually gives us a good opportunity to see the internal workings of a, of an axis lock knife. You can see here that there's a omega spring here that returns the axis lock in that direction. So if I do this, the omega spring brings it back. One other cool thing to note here is that once I pop the scale off of this side, come on now. Oh, the pivot screw is in there. Alright. So I'm just using my driver to press the pivot screw on out. There went the blade. Whoops. Now we have the two handles separated, and then we got this little package here in the middle, which is your axis lock package. So the easiest way to do this process is not to disassemble this further, because the axis lock is a little bit fiddly to take back apart. So, yeah, but the thing is, well, I never ever do nothing nice and easy, to quote, is it Tina Turner there? So, I'm gonna go ahead and do a full breakdown for you all. There we go. So, this, if you take the omega springs out, I just unseated them from their little holes there. The axis lock actually pops out through that little hole in the liners, which is a beautiful thing that Benchmade has done. As I recall, that's not actually the case in your 940 variants. The Benchmade did not do that, and that was always frustrating, trying to get the axis lock out of there. Maybe I was younger then and less skilled at disassembling knives, so maybe it wasn't a big problem, but it always sure felt like it. So there you go. This is now the knife disassembled, and I don't feel the need to take the Omega springs off of the bar there. Everything else here is broken down, so let's just jump on into cleaning here. And as always, I've got some paper towels, and I'm throwing all over the place. And, you know, the inside of the FRN doesn't need cleaning. It's not going to rust or anything. Go ahead and put down a little bit of simple green. And let's see just how dirty these washers are. Not so bad, actually. Yeah. These washers are A-okay. So wipe those off. There we go. Beautiful. So there's your washer, number 1. And here is washer number 2. This one's definitely got a little bit more gunk on it. So my buddy Jim said that this knife has seen some hard use, and, you know, all told, like even batoning, and he's the kind of guy that I actually believe that from. He is not exactly a mall ninja. So, you know, he says this has seen some hard use, and I can kind of see it, but at the same time, I see absolutely no sign of damage or trouble up inside this knife here. Everything looks really nice. There's no real severe wear on it. The blade looks good, and you know, pretty impressive right there. The Griptilian is a knife that I don't give a whole lot of credit to generally, just because it's not a great knife for me. It's very thick in the pocket, and the plasticky handles are terrible. Handled a mini grip, Ritter mini grip with the AWT, I think, scales, aftermarket scales, and that was pretty damn nice. But, you know, it is a really great design, even if it's not a really great design for the nick. There's a lot of simplicity to it, and the axis lock, if it were done a little bit better than Benchmade does it, is a really nice technology. Well, technology, it's maybe a strong word, but whatever. Now I'm just cleaning the axis lock itself, and yeah, that looks about good. I'm going to pop open my little bag of tricks here and grab a Q-tip, which I'm going to go ahead and soak with a little bit of simple green. And that'll allow me to go in and clean out some of the little holes in the scales and otherwise. Here we go. A little bit of gunk up in there. Here we go. And then a big one, make sure you always clean out the inside of the blade hole. Pivot hole on the blade, that is. That's a big helper. And I'm going to go ahead and use this just while I've got it to clean off the pivot here. Perfect. Some loud bird out there. It's okay. Rock on there, bird. And one more time, just cleaning the axis lock here. It's one area where they can very easily get gritty, is if you got crap on the axis lock, so the axis kind of goes as you move it back and forth. Alrighty, because this is a knife with internal liners, and just because I give a damn, I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit of froglube onto the liners, inside and out. Again, probably doesn't make a difference, and I happen to know he's living in a pretty dry climate, so not really a big issue, but it can't hurt. So there's that. And I'm sure I could pop this little guy loose, but honestly, I'm not feeling much of a need. There it goes. But, yeah, might as well leave it in there. That's good. Now I'm going to use what froglube remains to hit the blade tang, which is one of the few areas which will not get dried off, and why not? I'll go ahead and give the blade a light little coat in here. It's going to be humid as crap today, so, you know, not that that would actually affect S30V. S30V is a steel I got a real mixed relationship with. Compared to some of your older school steels, it's an absolute freaking revelation. Hello there, plane, outside. But it's a revelation compared to your older steels, but compared to your modern steels, and even, I mean, S35 is S30 is a modern steel through and through, but compared to some of what's come after it, S35, the M390, things like that, I just don't get excited about S30. Just, if nothing else, I really don't care for sharpening it. It's kind of a pain in the neck. And I find it hard to describe why it's a pain in the neck, but it really is. Getting the burr off's a total pain. But okay, rant over. So, we're going to go on ahead and reassemble this guy, and that's actually not a super trivial task given the axis lock construction here. So, there's always a question of order of operations, and I don't have a really strong view on the best approach there. So I'm going to go ahead and... Now I'm going to need to... At the very least, first I will pop one side of the axis lock on there and make sure that the... Nope, needs to go this direction. And I've screwed it up. As you can tell, I don't take apart a whole lot of Griptilians. There we go. So now the axis lock, there we go, will live just like that. It'll make more sense once I've actually got everything dialed in there. Then the omega spring stays in. But at the very least, I've got the bar properly oriented, which is good. Leave that there for the moment. I'm gonna go ahead, and that fell out. Such is the life. What I'm gonna try and do here, and sometimes I get really lucky on this, and sometimes I do not, is I'm actually gonna use the use some lubrication here, the nano oil. Get it nice and spread around there, and try and use that to hold the washer in place. Because the big issue with the axis lock is that when you reassemble this central package, you need to be able to slide the blade in afterwards. And that's a little tricky sometimes. So I'm going to see if I can't use the nano oil itself to hold that washer in place as I'm doing the rest of this work. And then I'll just put a little bit of nano oil on the inside of the, on the blade itself. With the dream, and it is a beautiful dream. There we go. Of keeping that on there, and that really takes a little bit of kind of titration, if you will, of the, there we go, of the amount of lubrication you're using, just because if you use too much, it runs damp and it just slops off there, but if you use too little, you're going to have an equally bad time because there's not going to be, it won't hold. So here's hoping I did that okay. Come on now, pop that on there. Now the axis pin, hoping I'm doing all this on camera, but it's a little fiddly. Here we go. Ah! Well, I just lost a washer. See, a little fiddly here, but that's okay. Just bear with me. This is the experience I've had previously doing axis locks. There are a bunch of little parts. Hey, you know, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, Nick, you idiot, you should have been doing X, Y, and Z instead. Aside from reevaluating my life choices, that I know. Go ahead and leave a comment as to what I'm doing better, or what I could be doing differently or better here. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice the washer for the moment and just focus on getting this axis lock in there and mounted. Go ahead and pop that and that together. And I just lost my axis lock. Okay, that's fine. Come on, pop this guy on out here. Perfect. So I'm going to seat one omega spring when people talk about omega springs failing in axis lock knives, that's right there, the little part that they're on about. There we go. That's a little better. All right, now I'm just using the tip of the applicator to make sure that the washers are in the proper position. Let's see here. I want to make sure that the pivot screw is on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and drop this in here. And actually, just in order to make my life a little bit easier as I'm dealing with this pivot, what I'm going to do is secure this pivot, this screw right here, which will hold the liner to the handle of the knife itself. So use a little tiny bit of thread locker here, blue Loctite as always. And get my little oiler. I'll just actually go ahead and take this off and dab it in like that. There we go. But this will just give me one less degree of freedom of motion. Of course, this bit got trapped in there as I'm putting the thing back together, because unfortunately this is one of those knives that requires a couple more hands than most humans are equipped with in order to properly assemble and disassemble. Make sure you're using the proper screws. This is the short, squat, central sort of screw. There we go. So that's popped in there now, which means I now have a handle attached to this. So the next step is going to be to go ahead and slide the blade in between the washers, which is always a struggle, and then pop the pivot in as quickly and effortlessly as I possibly can. The trick here is trying to get the blade in without dislodging the washers too substantially. So, okay, I have just failed pretty wholeheartedly at that, but what I'm going to go ahead and do, I've got one washer in on one side, and then I'm going to use my little oiler here and try, there we go, I'm going to try and pop this other washer in on the other side. You can see, hopefully, it's currently sliding through there. Beautiful. Use the oiler there to get that out of the way. Now, if I play my cards right, oh, damn it. I let the blade move, and so the washers moved with it, because nothing's secure in it. Very carefully, I'm going to go ahead and drop this, well, push this guy. And it is D-shaped, just to make life a little more interesting. There we go. So now I am keeping pressure on this side with the goal that whenever I get everything else into the proper position, if I move the washer out of the way, etc., this guy will just pop through and past. And the beautiful thing about the liners is that the D-shapes are going to be aligned on both sides here, so there's not going to be a problem in that particular way. Let's go ahead and pop that off. So this begins a very fiddly process. I'm just trying to make sure those washers are in perfect alignment. And what I'm trying to do here is just run the... And sometimes... Ow, that's no good. Well, it popped the pivot through there. What I was going to say to you there is that sometimes it's helpful to pull the axis lock back out of the way. And now we're back where we started, but that's okay. You do not, in life, it is my experience, have to be skillful as much as you have to be persistent. Benchmade is testing my persistence, but that's okay. Technically, Spyderco should be testing my persistence because they've got a persistence knife. Just saying. Okay, but now that I've popped the axis lock back a little bit, and sometimes that's really what it takes, it allowed the blade to move out of the way of the pivot just enough that the pivot can pop through there. So I now have the pivot almost all the way through here. Go ahead and keep some tension on the axis lock. Oh, this is why. Okay, did you just see that? That was dangerous. there's a reason I tend to do my disassemblies before I do my sharpening. Because when that popped through, the knife just came down and fell against my finger here. That was a really, really stupid move on my part. And what you should be doing from this right now is learning not to be like the Nick on that one. Ooh. Man, if I had pride, I'd be editing that out right now. But I don't, so there you go, enjoy. Now, time to Loctite the rest of this guy. Let's go ahead and put a little bit on the liner hole there. And while I've got everything exposed to the world here, I'm going to go ahead and apply some Loctite to the inside of the pivot here. And actually, come to think of it, I'm never going to get better access to these screw holes than I have right now. So I'm going to go ahead and Loctite the inside of those as well. And again, I'm using blue Loctite and not red Loctite. Red Loctite is a substance derived of pure evil. I don't know where they get their evil over at the Loctite factory. But, oh boy, is it some high-quality evil. And it prevents you from ever taking your knife back apart again. Or anything else for that freaking matter. That's kind of the point of it, and it's beautiful if you never want to be able to take things apart again. But for knife users, oh, bad, bad juju. Now it's just a question of buttoning the rest of it up here. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'll do the handles first because the bit's already in there. Go ahead and tighten this guy down. Whatever. Okay, and remembering, of course, to use long screws where long screws are due, and short screws where short screws are due. Sometimes on knives that are really complicated, although for the most part, production knives, they're smarter than this. You may have to take some pictures or at least arrange the screws in a part that kind of in a pattern that you know where everything went. At this point, I shoot from the hip. Sooner or later, it's gonna burn me bad, but it hasn't yet. Then again, I think I've dodged my bullet for the day with that finger catch there. Oh, boy, that was ugly. Damn it, Nick. Alrighty. Pop this out. Now we pop in the pivot. And with Benchmade's, unfortunately, adjusting the pivot is a really key component to a happy life, because some knives you just tighten down the pivot and everything works. Unfortunately, though, most Benchmades are not designed in such a way. One of the perks of an axis lock action, I'm checking the axis lock here, all my Omega springs are happy and in place. But one perk is that kind of fall shut, fall open sort of feeling. And so you want to make sure that everything is loose enough that you've got some nice action here, but tight enough that you don't have much in the way of blade play. Did I really get that right on the first shot? Wow. Yeah. Holy crap, I'm a freaking wizard. Alright. Well, either way, yeah, this is the Benchmade Griptilian. And it's now in beautiful condition. It falls shut very, very nicely, and there's really not blade play to speak of. Maybe a little bit on the vertical dimension, which is a reason, actually, that on an axis lock, sometimes it's helpful to put a little bit of grease, a thicker oil. I'm using the 85 weight nano oil here. I'm just putting a little tiny bead along the top of the tang, right in this surface, and that's what the axis lock slides against. Here, I'll show you. Watch. Pops up over there. And if you put a little bit of lubrication on there, what that allows it to do is slide all the way up there, and that removes the vertical blade play. So that's a, well, at least it removes some of it. Sometimes there are bigger issues giving you vertical blade play. But yeah, so that's another useful thing. One final thing that I'm going to do is put just a little tiny bit of your 10 weight nano oil right in here next to the axis lock, and that'll kind of serve to lubricate the lock mechanism itself and allow this to swing back and forth more freely. A little goes a long way there, and it's not strictly speaking necessary. Then what I'll do is spin this around a little bit, just to kind of distribute it nicely. But that just frees everything up a little more. That's actually a really nice action. Okay. So that's how you disassemble and maintain a Benchmade Griptilian. I hope this has been interesting to you. Now I get to carry this guy for a review. Thanks again, Jim, for letting me disassemble it. I hope you like what it's doing now for you. And have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.